You know, so far in this initial bomb of videos for Season 2, I've only looked at games revolving around big name IPs. Sonic, Mega Man, Pac-Man, and sure, Ruby's less well known compared to the former three, but it still has a cult following in the thousands. So I thought, to end off the initial batch of videos for Season 2, and before the bi-monthly videos kick off after, I'd take a look at something a bit more indie.
Which leads me to Demon Turf, a game that I saw on the PlayStation Store and fell in love with, mostly due to the art style. So I bought it for the low price of £18 British.
Which leads to today, so how about we head into the game and see what it's all about.
After a quick perusing of the settings to see if there was anything I wanted to change,
there wasn't.
I clicked start and was thrown directly into a tutorial where we get introduced to our protagonist Beebs, a young 1000-year-old demon who wants to become Queen of the Underworld, for some reason, and our antagonist, the Demon King, who is, well, the current King of the Underworld. Beebs says that it's time for her to sit on his throne, and the Demon King of course doesn't believe her, and we set off to go prove him wrong. So what kind of game is Demon Turf? Well, it's a 3D platformer developed by Fabraz, short for Fabulous Raspberries, where you make your way through multiple levels, collecting batteries and defeating the leaders of each turf until you end up face to face with the Demon King himself. Beebs here controls really well. She has a moveset akin to Mario in his 3D games, like a triple jump, side flip, wall jump, and etc. But Beebs, unlike Mario, can transform into this smaller demon to jump again while in mid-air, or hover a short distance while spinning, allowing you to dive and long jump. And she can throw punches or launch a big hand to push enemies and deflect projectiles. Exclusive to this game is a mechanic that allows you to place down up to 3 flags to act as checkpoints that you can walk between, which I think is such a cool idea. It makes me put more thought into the level design itself and consider whether I should place a flag before a tricky platforming segment, or after to prevent having to do it again. We also get introduced to one of the main collectibles of this game, cakes, so you know my fat ass was loving that. There are 3 in every level and they allow you to buy things in shops, but we'll get there in a bit. After we finish the tutorial, we get a cutscene giving more context and lore to the demon world, before Beebs wakes up from her dream and tells her friend Midgie about it. To which he tells us to head to the Apoca Desert to take down their gang. This then leads us to the main hub world for this game, Forktown, and there is a lot to do here. There's this building where this definitely not a demon Becca tasks us with taking pictures of different things in the demon world, to fill her art gallery. This building that allows you to buy mods that change Beebs' moveset in some way, like giving her a second mid-air jump or increasing her running speed. This building where you can buy dyes to change the colour of Beebs' hair and clothes. The arena where you can take on different combat challenges in exchange for some more sweets. The pet store where you can, well, buy pets, what were you expecting? This building where you can talk to Mr. Mint, husband of Mrs. Malteser and father of Son Sour, and do short platforming challenges. This arcade where you can play more platforming challenges, but this time with a timer, and you access these by finding different game cartridges hidden throughout Forktown. And lastly, this building where you can spend a few sweets to get one of the main collectibles, a battery, without needing to do the level, or if it's too hard.
Like I said, there's a lot to be done here, and it makes for some incredible post-game material. And before we move on, I just want to say that I love this game's art style. The idea of having 2D characters inhabit a 3D world is such a cool idea, and one you don't see all too often, besides in games like Paper Mario where that's the gimmick.
Before we can head to the first turf, we're stopped by one of Beebs' friends, Lucy, who is working for the Demon King and who also doesn't believe we can take him down, so we set off to prove her wrong. Which leads to our first turf, the Apoca Desert, but in order to gain access to the rest of the turf, we need to get a battery from our first level, Baby Canyon.
What a great start.
This level was fairly simple and acted as a second tutorial for the game, just in case, I don't know, you found a way to sleep through it? Mainly, it acted as a tutorial for how the levels are going to be structured, that being you needing to make your way from point A to point B whilst keeping an eye out for any cakes, doing some platforming like here on these bouncy flowers, and occasionally having to deal with some enemies like here in this combat zone, where we need to defeat the enemies in order to progress. And at the end of the level we get our first battery, which gains us access to the rest of the turf and by proxy the rest of the levels. Since the hub world is laid out like a circle, I took the Crash Bandicoot approach and just went from left to right from our access point, which led me to our next level, Tight Ravine. Is that a euphemism? This level was actually pretty tough for me, and that's because this level was mostly platforming as you make your way higher and higher up this ravine. And since I'm still not used to the controls just yet, I had a hard time dealing with this level. To me the controls were somehow tight and slippery at the same time.
Just like your mum!
And it caused me to misread jumps all the time, but I managed to get through the level with all 3 cakes and get the battery nonetheless. Moving on to the next level now, Burg Vault. I got one of those at home. This level has you platforming on the outer walls of this castle tower to get to the top, and it's really fun. Not just because I was growing accustomed to the controls, but also because they add new kinds of platforms to this level, like these crumbling platforms, these rotating cube platforms, or these timed on and off platforms. Once you get to the top of the tower and enter it, you then have to fall through this laser grid with holes in it, which I thought was pretty cool. Would have been cool if I could point the camera directly down, but I suppose that would break the illusion of a 2D character in a 3D world. Other than that, this level was fine. It did take me a while, mostly because I couldn't find the third cake, but I managed to get it in the end. The next level I went to, Flower Fields, was actually pretty interesting. It's more linear than the previous levels and relies heavily on the bouncy flower platforms we saw in the first level. Sure, there's still combat zones and a decent bit of tricky platforming you need to do, and there's even this small section where you can see an Apoca Desertian fighting with two Armada Gedonites. God, those are hard to say. Giving us a small bit of foreshadowing for the next turf, but besides that, this level was probably the simplest so far. The next level up is Cave Hut, and this level has a cool mechanic of you needing to complete different science experiments in order to progress. The experiments range from pressing a button behind an invisible wall, platforming while avoiding lasers, and killing pigs. But besides those, this level was okay. On to our penultimate level for this turf now, Arena City. This one was cool, as it was a mashup of all the different mechanics and obstacles we've seen so far thrown into one level. There's the shooting lasers, the rotating cube platforms, the experiments we need to do in order to progress, the bouncy flower platforms, combat zones, and platforming on the outside of a tower. It was a really fun level, and I completed it with minimal trouble. And now we're on to the last level of this turf, Randa Canyon. This level was another linear platforming focused level, and it was actually pretty short, so I don't have that much to say about it, other than I did a super long jump to get the last cake I needed.
Thank you. I know, it's rare to see a gamer with such pure skill baked into their DNA, but rest assured, I am not going anywhere.
And now we're on to the boss of this turf, Fredo. We unlock a new power for Beeves in this level, the hook shot. Wonder where that name came from. You use the right bumper to swing past these floating bars and pull objects and enemies, and now that we have it, I could see level designs being really intricate and in-depth in the future. The boss here was really good. It's split up into 3 phases, each equipped with their own checkpoints, which is good to know. The first phase has him spit out bombs that kill you and slam his hands down to create a shockwave that pushes you back. Once he slams his hands down, you need to use the hookshot on his cuffs to pull them off, which damages him for some reason. Once one of his cuffs is off, he slams the ground multiple times, creating multiple shockwaves and breaking apart the platform you're standing on, which starts phase 2. In this phase, he shoots homing missiles out of his mouth instead of the bombs and swipes his hand across the arena, which you need to avoid or you're dead. But you damage him the exact same way as before by using the hookshot on his remaining cuff. Once his second cuff is off, you need to use the hookshot to escape before he destroys the whole platform. You then need to defeat the enemies he spawns while avoiding the missiles he shoots out before escaping again. After you've done that twice, he starts forming a huge spike ball and you need to use your hookshot to get close to him and yank it down to hit him instead.
Not gonna lie, I really thought we'd do something with the nose ring there. It's a 3D model, much like the cuffs that we damaged with the hookshot, so I thought we were gonna use it to slam his head into the ground or something. After this, we get a cutscene of Beebs telling Lucy that she beat Fredo and is leader of the Apoca Desert. Lucy doesn't believe her and even mocks her before walking off. We also get access to the next turf and the return trip levels of this turf, but I'll get to them later. For now, I headed back to Forktown and saw that a new minigame was available, Demon Soccer Golf. It's fine. Not my favourite minigame, but it's still alright. I also went into the mod shop and bought the increased movement speed mod and the second mid-air jump mod because I thought they'd be useful before moving on to the next turf, Armada Geddon. I think now will be a good point to tell you my overall thoughts on this game so far. It was pretty good. Sure, I had some problems with the controls, but once I got used to them, I found myself really enjoying the levels. And I really like the idea of having to place your own checkpoints. It's such a cool system, and I think that other game franchises should take notes from it. Once we get to the next turf, we find out that this is actually Midgie's home. We also see that yet again we need to collect a battery to gain access to the rest of the levels. Why not use the ones you already have? Which leads us into the first level of this turf, Baby Ocean. This level is pretty good. It makes use of the hookshot we obtained at the end of the first turf, and there are even some enemies that require you to pull off their shields with the hookshot, which I thought was neat, and it adds variety to what would be a basic enemy. There's this part where you have to swim in this tube and avoid spike balls and a laser grid with a hole in it, and this part where you have to hookshot to the end, but other than that the level was fine. Once I gained access to the rest of the turf, I headed left towards my next level, Port Manteau, but for some reason there was a gap in front of the level. What is this, a train station? Why is this here?
This level starts with us going through this maze that's full of insta-kill hazards before introducing us to a new mechanic, a ring race. In these, you have to race through these rings, shocker I know, in a timely manner in order to gain access to a collectible or a way to get to the next part of the stage. And while this one isn't timed and acts more so as a tutorial to get you used to the idea of a ring race, future ones will have a timer, so you have to be quick. After this, we enter a collect zone, where you have to collect all these keys in order to unlock the next area, which leads us to another collect zone that has a moving key that we need to grab, and after that it's just a beeline to the end. Overall, not a bad stage. It introduced new mechanics and I even got through it without placing a single checkpoint. Moving on to our next level now, Sewer Factory. Sounds lovely. This level introduces yet another new mechanic to the game, poison. It poisons you, no duh, and makes you slowly take damage until you die, but you can spin multiple times or hop into one of these showers to remove it. Besides that, there isn't really much to say about this level. It's got some tricky platforming segments, but mostly it adheres to the poison mechanic for the entire thing. Although I actually wasn't able to find all the cakes in this level, probably due to the green hue this level has, making it hard to see, especially underwater. So unfortunately, I left this level with only 2. Up next is Calm Bay, and this one was actually pretty cool. It's more open-ended than the other levels, and instead of just getting to the end, you have to complete different objectives all around the different islands to get keys that gain you access to the end of the level, so I got through this one without much trouble. The next level I tackled was Volcanic Trio, and this one was pretty fun. Firstly, it has these new timed jump platforms that were really fun to platform on, and secondly, this level is very platform heavy, whereas the last one was more about exploration. There's the aforementioned disappearing platform segment, a segment over lava, and a section where you scale the inside of a volcano, which I really thought was going to have a rising lava mechanic, but I guess not. There's also this part at the end where you need to kill the enemies in order to gain access to the end of the level. All in all, this level was pretty good. On to the next one now, Tidal Climb, and this one was pretty straightforward. Not literally, you actually have to climb up this giant thing that looks like a toilet, whilst occasionally pulling these levers to make the water rise up, allowing you to jump on platforms floating in the water to get across, and it's all fairly simple. The only problem with this level was the fact that I wasn't able to get the second cake, because I pulled this lever before checking out the path it was on. But besides that, this level was easy. So how about we move on to the last level of this turf, Leaping Falls. This level was more vertical than the others and has you completing different tasks in order to access the higher levels, whether it's collecting keys, defeating enemies, or completing a ring race. It's all fairly simple and a good level to end this turf out on. But now we're here at the boss of this turf, Cap'n Damp. At the start of this level, you unlock a new power-up, much like in the previous boss fight. This power is called Rollout, and it allows you to turn into a snake and roll forward while gradually gaining speed and momentum, which my Sonic brain was so excited to use. The boss itself was pretty simple. All you have to do is launch his projectiles back at him to exhaust him, while occasionally avoiding the shockwaves he produces, after which you have to knock him off the platform to damage him. After that, you have to chase him down using the rollout while he launches projectiles at you. In the second phase, he launches poison projectiles at you and spawns enemies, but that's really it. After you've knocked him off the edge of the platform again, you have to chase him one more time, but this time he's launching red projectiles that insta-kill you if they hit you, so it's a lot more dangerous than last time. And in the third phase, he launches red projectiles, so it's not too hard to beat him at this point. After this, we get a cutscene of Beebs telling Lucy that she beat 2 turfs. However, Lucy is mad at her and says that the boss is furious and she didn't think she could actually do it. After which she storms off, we unlock the return trip levels, which I'll get to, and we move on to the next turf, New Neo City, and... is that Hatsune Miku?
Overall, Armageddon was a definite increase in difficulty. With all the new mechanics and hazards introduced, it's much harder than the first turf, but what was I expecting really? It's not like it's going to get easier.
Once we enter New Neo City, we once again need to get a battery to access the rest of the turf, which we get much like the other turfs in this game so far from the first level of this turf, Baby City. I would hate to live there. This level, much like the other first levels of the turf, acts as a tutorial to the many mechanics and obstacles we're going to be seeing in these levels. There's these weight-dependent tilting platforms, these gelatinous platforms that have different properties based on the colour. Blue acts as ice and is slippery, green slowly disappears, orange bounces, and purple lets you stick in place. And there are plenty of roads that sink down that you have to use the rollout to get across. The only part I have a problem with is this part at the end when you need to use the rollout and then immediately switch to the hookshot to get across. It sounds easy, I promise you it is not. But either way, we gain access to the rest of the turf and make our way to the next level, Scare Tower. This level introduces these platform switch block things, and they kinda suck. Once you touch these blocks, it switches between two sets of platforms that you have to use to progress, but if you so much as touch a pinky toe to one of them, it switches and 90% of the time they are placed right where you need to be jumping, making it way harder than it needs to be. This level also introduces these curse zones. Once you enter these fucking portals with fucking Demon King's fucking face on them, you get fucking transported to the fucking curse zone itself, which gives you a small fucking platforming challenge, with the caveat being that some of your fucking movement is restricted, like not being able to fucking jump or spin.
Get it? Because it's a curse zone. Besides that, it's a mechanic I do like, because it forces you to think more outside the box with how to progress, and it adds a bit of challenge to a level that you might think is a bit easy.
A pretty simple level, but I'm intrigued as to how they'll use the curse zone mechanic in future levels. Speaking of, let's move on to the next one, Urbtops. This level was more open-ended than the others, as you have to make your way through city blocks and do various challenges, some with curses, some without, in order to unlock the next part of the city block to progress, and it's also where I fully understood how the rollout worked and the rollout drift, and now that I do understand it, yeah, this is my favourite power in the game. It's just so fun to use. Other than that, this level was simple. So how about we move on to the next one, Highest Way. This level has you using the rollout to race down these highways on a time limit, after which you have to collect keys while avoiding enemies and these new searchlight enemies that one-shot you if you're spotted. Once you've collected the keys, you move on to another timed highway section, and then you have to defeat enemies in order to move on to the third and final timed highway section. Overall, this level was really fast-paced and really fun too. The next level up is Top Roofs, and this one, I don't have much to say about, unfortunately. It's a tricky linear platforming level where you jump from rooftop to rooftop while avoiding enemies and projectiles. Most of my struggle came from missing a jump and forgetting to place a checkpoint. So far, this level has been the weakest of this turf. So how about we just forget about it and move on to the next level, Subway Surfing.
Subway Surfers?!
This level has you travelling through and on top of multiple train cars before needing to platform from one train to another during the brief moment when there's a gap between the two train tunnels, and it is really fun. I've seen multiple platformers do a level based on jumping from one train car to another, but never from one train to another. It's so cool, and it's probably one of my favourite levels in this game because of it. On to the last level of this world now, Union Builds. This level has you platforming on more rooftops and using construction vehicles like cranes to make it from one rooftop to the next. Much like Top Roofs, I really don't have much to say about this level. It takes place on a construction site, so that's cool I guess, but that's really it. Oh, also I did this cool skip at the end where I used the built up momentum from the rollout into the spin glide in order to skip a chunk of the level at the end. Besides that, this level was lackluster to end on. So how about we move on to the boss of this turf, Tomoe and Gozen. This level starts with us getting another new power up, this one being called Soar the Skies. It allows Beeps to turn into a bird and glide long distances, which we use to get to the boss arena itself. This boss fight starts with us fighting Gozen, who shoots projectiles and lasers, which we can fortunately send back to him to exhaust him, before he teleports and clones himself, and you can tell which Gozen is real by noticing that the clones have this dithering effect, while the real Gozen doesn't. Once Gozen is exhausted, you have to knock him off the stage before the stage itself shoots you up and you have to glide to the next area while avoiding lasers, and the music in this section is just great. Phase 2 has you going up against Tomoe, who can blow you off the stage and charge at you to push you off the stage. All you have to do is avoid her attacks, exhaust her, and push her off the stage before having to glide to the next one again. The third phase has you dealing with both of them at once in a closed arena with red insta-kill balls, which you have to knock them into in order to defeat them, which I did. That was a pretty fun boss, probably my favourite in this game. After this, we get a cutscene of Beebs wanting to show Lucy that she beat 3 turfs, but Lucy isn't anywhere to be seen, so we move right along to the next turf, Peak Plateau.
New Neo City, while not being too much harder than Armageddon, was still pretty fun and had a lot of level ideas that I really enjoyed. And the boss was pretty tough and tense at times, mainly in the third phase.
And you know the drill by now, we can't access the rest of the turf yet, so we have to get a battery from Baby Cliffs. This level was pretty simple, but most of the first levels of a turf have been so far. This level relies heavily on the bird power-up, and introduces these spin platforms that you have to spin to make rise up. We also get introduced to proper ice platforms this time, and these, what I'm going to call face panels. You have to stand on all of them and make them smile in order to activate something that allows you to progress. We also get introduced to these new enemies with ice-themed attacks, but much like any regular enemy, they aren't too hard to take care of. Besides those, this level was fine. The next level, Topsy Turvy, was also fairly simple, and the part where you enter a cave and it limits your visibility was pretty cool. but this platforming section at the end was pretty annoying to get through. It starts with you needing to platform on springs, some of which are moving, and because of how far they launch you into the air, it was really tricky to get down. Then you have to jump onto these moving platforms going in a circle, which wasn't too tough, but then you have to platform using these purple gelatinous parts of the wall. And one thing I don't like about these is that when you jump off of them, you jump so far off that you need to do a mid-air jump and spin just to make it to the next one. And these things can be really inconsistent sometimes. Then you have to avoid some lasers and a fan that pushes you down, then there's some retracting platforms with ice physics before one final glide while avoiding lasers to reach the end of the level. God, that was a tough one. The next level up, Woodlands, besides being the name of my old school, was thankfully much simpler than the last level. It introduces these ski lift platforms which I really thought were going to lead somewhere, but here they didn't. There's also this split path segment which I really thought would be utilised more, but unfortunately no. One of the two paths just leads to a cake and that is it. Besides that, again, this level was simple. So let's move on to the next one, Ancient Ruins. This level was the first This level was the first open level of this turf, so it was pretty simple. The only struggles I did have were at the start, where you have to use this spinning platform to avoid this separately spinning laser grid with a hole in it, in order to get a singular cake. But besides that, this level was fine and didn't introduce anything new besides these platforms that flip around in a cycle. So yeah, all things considered, not too bad. On to the next level now, Apres Ski. This level was really linear in comparison to the previous one. It has you doing different curse challenges in order to progress, like not being able to jump or glide while going down this dangerous slope, or having to get this ball in this goal with the hook shot, which I did on the first try.
Moving on.
Just like Michael Jackson. So this level was simple and really fun to get through. The next level, Ice Cavey, great name by the way, was weirdly enough somehow linear and open-ended at the same time. It's open-ended in the sense that you have to do different challenges all around the level in order to get keys, but those keys are then used to gain access to the end of the level, which is pretty linear by design. Although this level does have a maze which I think may be a Super Mario 64 reference. Besides that, this level was pretty straightforward. And now we're on to the last level of this turf, Peaking Temples. This level was a pretty linear one to end things off on. All you have to do is make your way up these mountains and get to the end while dealing with the obstacles we've seen in this turf so far, like the ice platforms, the flipping platforms, and we have to use the glide ability multiple times, including in this tube which is lined with lasers, which I got through on my first try. Probably because I flew around it. Besides that, this level was a nice one to finish on. I guess I got the hard ones out of the way at the beginning. It's boss time now, as we have to take on the leaders of this turf, Gol and Lem, and we finally gain access to the final power-up of this game, About Time. It lets Beebs charge up an attack and launch an orb that slows an object down, which is cool and all, but why doesn't it just slow down time? It's not like the game can't handle that, because if you hold down the left bumper, time slows down so you can choose the power you want to use. Why doesn't it work like that, but rather this clunky, convoluted way?
And for $10 million, would you like to guess how it's utilised in the boss fight? Is it A, you have to use it to slow them down as they attack, to get your own attacks in because they attack really quickly? B, you have to slow down the projectiles that they send out so you can send them back at them because the projectiles move very quickly? C, you have to slow down the barriers in order to take cover behind them to avoid their giant laser attack? Or D, all of the above? I'll give you 10 seconds to lock in your answer. Got your answer? Because if you answered D, all of the above, you're wrong because it isn't utilised at all.
Not during the first phase where you have to platform along their back to get to their heads. Not during the second phase where all you need to do is knock their hands off the edge of the arena as they come in waves. And not during the final phase where all you need to do is launch the enemies that they spawn into their bodies to defeat them. So it begs the question, why was this introduced here? Before a boss it was barely utilised in. So we get through that and get another cutscene where Lucy wants to talk in private in Forktown, to which Beebs says she's busy and about to face the Demon King, and Beebs tells Lucy to meet her in his lair and then they can talk. We also unlock the return trip levels for this turf and... yeah, I should probably talk about these, shouldn't I? Upon defeating each turf leader, we can return back to the turf, which will have changed in some way, whether it's a different time of day or a different layout. But most importantly, the levels themselves have changed and have new batteries and 50 lollipops to collect.
I can't even count that high! Check it! 1, 6, fuck!
These levels then act as hard mode variants of the original levels they're based on.
It's a pretty neat idea. changing the levels and making them more difficult and having more things to collect, while at the same time utilising every bit of your kit and act as a sort of new game plus with some extra levels to play. So why is it mandatory?
You heard that right. Once you've finished all the levels in each turf and taken down every boss in each turf, you still don't have enough batteries to get to the Demon King himself, and the only place to get said batteries is from the levels themselves, so you have to do the return trips, which kinda makes the concept of return trips fall apart. I've just beaten every level in each of the turfs and I'm ready to take on the final boss, only for you to tell me, nah, do it again.
And I did need to do it again. I had to play 2 turfs worth of return trips before saying fuck it and buying a whole turf and a bit's worth of batteries at Forktown. At that point, why are these even in the game? It's not that I don't like hard mode versions of levels, and in platformers I encourage it as an extra bit of content for the fans. But this isn't extra content. It's necessary to beat the game. The developers should have made the main levels the necessary ones to beat the game, and keep the return trips for post-game. You know, like every other optional thing in this game. So to save you all and myself the time, I'm just going to skip over them and move on to the Demon King's lair.
Also, they tend not to work half the time. What do you mean, return to turf area? I'm right there! Once we enter the Demon King's lair, we get a cutscene of Beebs talking to Lucy, and she admits that she's been a bad friend to her and apologises to her. We also see that a level called King's Vault is locked behind 100% completion, which is a nice incentive to do so. But I've rattled on long enough at this point, so let's head directly into the last level of the game, Demon's Demise. This level was really cool, purely for the fact that since it's the last level of the game, it can throw everything at you. There's multiple combat zones, crumbling platforms, time switch platforms, collect zones, lava, and the thwomp-like obstacles. The platforms that switch when you jump, obviously curse zones are here, the annoying to use switch block platform, and there are even sections where you need to use all of the power-ups you've obtained. Yes, even the time stop ability, which according to my count gives it exactly 1 use. How amazing! And since there are no cakes in this level, it allows you to focus solely on the level and not where possible collectibles might be. All in all, what an amazing level to end this game on. And now it is time. The entire game has been leading to this very moment, the moment where we finally take down the Demon King.
Now this boss is incredibly cool.
And that is because in the first phase he summons copies of the bosses you faced previously, and all you need to do is damage them. Sometimes you have to damage these specific glowing areas in order to deal damage to the Demon King's main health bar.
I really like when games have a final segment where you throw down with the previous bosses in a different way. It's just a nice touch to me.
In the second phase, the Demon King destroys the platform we're on, sending us plummeting into an arena, where he then turns into a copy of Beebs and we have to take him down. And this is the first time we actually see a health bar for Beebs, which I think is cool because now there's a direct indicator of how close you are to death, whereas throughout the rest of the game there really hasn't been. Once we've dealt enough damage to the Demon King, he places his own checkpoint to restore his health and begin the third phase, which I think is a cool flip on the game's main mechanic. Once you've dealt enough damage, you've finally beaten the Demon King, and once he's defeated, he turns into this kid, and it turns out he just wants friends to hang out with, but due to being the Demon King, it hasn't been easy to do so. They agree to be friends and decide to play some video games at Beebs' place. Credits roll.
That twist was something I really didn't see coming. Mostly because I didn't know who that character was. Once I realised that that kid was an NPC you can talk to in Forktown, it kinda made sense, but still. Throughout this entire game, the NPCs haven't been that important, so why would I talk to them more than once? But that is Demon Turf, a really good indie 3D platformer that I would recommend to anyone, and let's be honest, indie 3D platformers aren't something you see every day. The gameplay is good, the level design is intricate and in-depth, the power-ups you get at the end of each turf, barring one, are all really fun to use and useful, and the music is incredible, although there are only 2 level themes per world, 4 per world if you count the return trips, which I think is a bit of a missed opportunity. My main problems with the game are 1, the fact that the return trip levels are mandatory. They should have been extra content like the minigames or the photography, stuff you do after the game if you really want to keep playing. 2, the fact that one of the power-ups is barely utilised, probably because it's kinda clunky to use. And 3, the fact that this game doesn't have much recognition. I mean, there's a great game here, so why are there only like 2 YouTube videos on it? And the wiki might as well not even exist, there's nothing on there. Overall, this game is great and I love it. And if you like 3D platformers, then I guarantee that you will too. And last but not least, where's my Demon Turf sports spin-off called Demon Surf?
Ukulele?